Psst, over here. Yeah, I know, it's pretty, but stop oogling for a second. Look, Pax Pamir 2nd edition is tempting. I mean, just look at this map and these components. Anyway, if you're anything like me, you are going to be mesmerized by the look of this game, but if you think these components look meticulously crafted, then this game's design is on a whole other level. Pax Pamir is like a dudes on a map area control game, but the dudes that you control at any given time can change. In fact, regardless of player count, there are always 3 factions: the British, the Russians, and the Afghan forces, and each player is a tribal leader deftly trying to capitalize on the conflict between the 3. As you play, you'll recruit cards to your court, which will grant immediate, ongoing, and activatable effects that will disrupt the balance of power in play. Through these cards, you'll build up allies, destroy opposing forces, add tribes and spies, extort, tax, and deftly maneuver to obtain dominance, points, and victory. In its most basic sense, the game is pretty simple. On your turn, you can take 2 actions, and the 2 actions that you have from the get-go are that you can either purchase a card from the market, add it to your hand, or you can take a card from your hand and play it into your court. And if one of the cards in your court has an action listed on it, that's a different action that you can take on one of your turns as one of your 2 actions. But if your card's type, political, economic, military, or intelligence, is currently favored, that card's actions don't count against your 2 action limit, and cards, among other things, are how you manipulate pieces around the board and destroy opposing pieces, both on the board and in the courts. And all of this is in service of these puppies right here, the 4 dominance cards. The game is largely driven by the market, a dual river of court and event cards semi-sorted through some player scaling setup magic. Events are immediate or lasting effects, including 4 dominance cards. More on that in a bit. To buy a card, a coin has to be dropped on every card before it, speaking of which, almost every time you pay for an action that costs some dough, the money is put onto cards on the market, which are picked up when the card is selected. Very little currency is added to the game after it begins, so the 4 coins that each player starts with is largely going to be the economy players work with, which is both ingenious and terrifying. Money is really important. Eventually, dominance cards will trigger, which is where players check game state and accrue points. If one faction has at least 4 more pieces than the other 2 factions, it is dominant, and every player allied with that faction will gain points based on how much influence they have, which comes from patriots, court cards you've killed that were targets for your allied faction, and the gifts that you've paid for using specific actions. On the other hand, if no faction has dominance, then players get points based off of tribal pieces in play. In either case, if a player now has a lead of 4 or more points, boom, the game immediately ends and they win. If not, you continue until the 4th dominance check, at which time the most points wins. Okay, so yeah, there's a ton of nuance to this game, but the biggest paradigm shift, and what makes it such a fascinating little nugget to play, is the shifting and fluid faction allegiance. See, there's all kinds of mechanics for taking control of regions or bribing other players in order to force them to pay you to play things onto the board, but really, as you're adding pieces all throughout the land, you're going to notice that one faction or another is becoming dominant. It has more pieces than anyone else, and you notice that your opponent just happens to be allied with the British, who are dominant right now. Well, you don't want to let that slide. You want a piece of that British pie. So you buy a patriot or kill a target who has a bounty placed on Britain, in which case you switch allegiance. You discard all the patriots and gifts and hullabaloo associated with your last allegiance, and now you are proudly on the dominant side, meaning you and Sally London are competing for affection of the British crown. This creates a huge range of possibilities as you shift factions, you position, posture, goad, bluff. I've never played a game that felt so Machiavellian, but then again, I've never played a game that made me want to be so Machiavellian either. Look, there are a lot of little details in this game, and that's going to be intimidating for some people, but it is one of the most strategically rewarding games I've played. And yeah, sure, with all of those little details, you're bound to miss 1 or 2 things your first couple of games that may end up changing a couple of outcomes, but it does become pretty intuitive after a while. The real complexity of the game, the biggest hurdle to overcome, the thing that will impact your enjoyment the most, is not that there is such an overwhelming amount of things you can do. It's understanding the sheer importance and the ramifications of what you choose to do. And that is really, really cool. So if you're still on board, let's talk about a few other things. First, this is a mean game. To play it well, you'll either be flexing military or economic dominion to oppress your opponents, or capitalize on their hard-earned work by swapping factions at just the right time. Second, this game is playable 1 to 5 players, but the level of mind-blowing calculations can be entirely overwhelming at high player count. Too many cooks in the proverbial kitchen. I think the sweet spot for comprehensible strategic play is 3 to 4. Which brings me to the third thing, the Wakan, the solo and optional 2-player variant. This is a really brilliant system that is far too under-detailed in the book. If you expect to use the Wakan, turn to the community online where the designers have answered lots of the questions about the game. As with everything Pax Pamir, operating the Wakan can feel entirely overwhelming at first, but rewarding with familiarity. It makes a challenging puzzle for solo and provides meaning to hop from one faction to the other in 2-player games, though 2-player head-to-head can be delightfully severe in its own way. I really like this game, but the funny thing is that my respect for the game outweighs the fun I have in playing it. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy playing this game, but that enjoyment doesn't derive from fun, if that makes any sense. I would be lying if I said this is my type of game. The scheming and backstabbing, sudden turnarounds, it's all delightful, but this is a game of critical, nuanced thought where every move by every player feels full of complex motivations, and that kind of pressure can lead to overwhelming anxiety. But the game still draws me in nonetheless. Partially, that's due to the incredible production. The powerful totems used to represent military forces and roads feel lavish and important. The cloth map adds an air of elegance and sophistication, and the artwork is consistently gorgeous. This is easily the prettiest game that I've ever played, and that goes a long way in making me want to play it. But the look goes beyond sheer aesthetic. The abstraction brilliantly highlights vital information while remaining extremely thematic, making it so much easier to process and comprehend the complexities involved in Pax Pamir. It's this unity between presentation and play that makes it such a compelling package. It is both ferociously complex and deviously simple, and each detail of both the rules and components seems to exist cohesively, no more and no less than it should be, which is an incredible feat. Will I play it all the time? No, but with the right mood and the right people, this is such a beautiful game. And that's our review. Thanks for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.